So, hello everyone, welcome to tonight's underground session, The Idea. I'm Becky Jones and I head up partnerships at Appear Here. For those of you that don't know much about us yet, we're the leading online marketplace for retail space. Think of us a little bit like Airbnb for shops. And we started about 5 years or so ago now with a mission. And that mission was to create a world where anyone with an idea, so that's probably a ton of you guys tonight, to find space to make that idea happen in. And that's so far taken us from our HQ in London to New York to Paris. And we've actually got some of our international squad here tonight. So if anyone's thinking of launching internationally, you've got the right people in the room. We're here tonight to celebrate the launch of Space for Ideas, which is our competition where we're giving away 4 free stores in London, Paris, New York, and LA to the very best ideas, creators, makers, innovators that we find. And our amazing panel tonight are going to be sharing the story behind their idea and, most importantly, how you actually make that idea happen and how you really grow something and take it and run with it. Just before we kick off with a few introductions, a bit of kind of admin, we've got, if you're following along on Twitter or Instagram or anything, use the hashtag underground session. If you have any questions and you're too shy to put your hand up during the talk, then put them there and hopefully Marina will get them to us at the end, potentially. Otherwise, we should have time for a bit of a Q&A at the end. So, kicking off with Poppy Jamie, who is wearing a fabulous coat and is the founder of mental health app Happy Not Perfect, which I know some of my friends are obsessed with at the moment, so well done on that. And also co-founder of D2C accessories brand Pop&Suki, obviously launched with the actress Suki Waterhouse. So I'll let you explain your company in a second, but what I've got on my card is that they're both inspired by key relationships in your life. So one would be friendship with Suki, and the other would be with your mother, who's a psychotherapist, and has helped your father overcome his chronic anxiety. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, that's
actually,
me.
go for it now. Actually, that makes sense. If you tell the story in your own words. Like, where did maybe do Happy Not Perfect? Where did the idea for that come from? What's the story behind it?
Well, it was about 4 years ago now. I launched the first TV show on Snapchat, which was really interesting because it was at the kind of this intersection of when content was very much, we watched television shows to all going online. And I had moved to LA to work with MTV out there and had actually met the founder of Snapchat. And when he was telling me about his kind of plans for content, I kind of rolled my eyes a bit and thought, don't you just have the app that sends dick pics? Didn't quite realize the extent of Snapchat. And then when he told me his user base was, kind of at that time, like 60 million, I was like, oh, we should really talk. And anyway, so a show that I was actually preparing to do with MTV, I suddenly had this moment of, imagine, a TV show goes into the handsets of 60 million people globally. And that's what happened. And from that, I kind of ended up having thousands of messages being sent to me via my Snapchat. Oh, wow. And what was so interesting about these messages, I could start to really look at what people were saying kind of offline in an online capacity. And what I mean by that is the way that we share on Instagram is with the knowledge that people are going to see what we say or write or post. But on Snapchat, because the message is deleted, the ephemeral nature of them meant that you had this beautiful, honest dialogue from people. And it was like looking into people's diary entries all around the world. And it wasn't long before I realized that it didn't matter where you were, what age, gender, everybody was saying the same thing, which is, I am so stressed out. And that really led me into kind of a psychological study with neuroscientists at CLA to look at what is happening to humanity right now. What, in the last 15 years, technology has totally changed the way that we communicate, the way that we live our lives, and what is the effect of in the brain, because we still have very much kind of the caveman mindset, well, not mindset, but just the caveman functions. So, yes, that was so I thought, imagine if I could give my mum to the world and give everybody a psychotherapist and an app. And Happy Not Perfect is now It's a gym for the mind. If you can't meditate, brilliant, because Happy Not Perfect is kind of your solution. It brings you 5 minutes of mental well-being activities to rewire and reshape your brain to feel more positive, optimistic, boost your immune system, focus, calmer, and all the other benefits of mindfulness.
Amazing. Fantastic. Simon, moving on to you.
Hello.
Simon, the founder of EJDER, a London, I think it will be when you start talking, I've been told.
Hello.
A London-based streetwear brand. We obviously know you super well because, so I don't know if a lot of our team know this, but Simon was one of the first people to actually launch a store with a peer here. So that was back in South Molton Street back in the day. And I don't know if you remember this, but you sent us a note after you gave the keys back, and we've actually got it framed in our office.
Alice mentioned that the last thing.
Did she? Because it said, "This might just have changed my life."
Yeah.
So since then, I guess you've been killing it. You've done collaborations with absolutely everyone. You've got your store now in Old Street. You were the only person that was actually brave enough to open a store in the old toilets in Old Street Underground Station, which was voted above Kanye West as the coolest store in the world. So not a bad accolade there. Is that what? How did that start for you? Because I think before South Molton Street, you already had a brand and a business, and what was the inception point behind that?
I mean, it's been an organic journey. It was, I was a youth worker for 10 years, always had a keen interest in streetwear, collecting trainers and stuff. And I quit my job in 2012 to go backpacking into the abyss, didn't have a plan. So this is quite interesting actually, because it wasn't like an idea that I had and I strategized and put in place. It was something that I was literally just following what I was interested in, literally. And then started selling out my bedroom. Like, it's a long story that I could go on and on for. Essentially, selling from my bedroom. And then this whole notion of like a pop-up got brought to my attention.
And you on Tumblr as well? Yeah, you built the community on Tumblr.
Yeah, we did a shoot in London. The idea was to bring like streetwear brands and high fashion brands together, which, as we're all aware now, it's like the in thing, like it's, kind of mainstream now. But at that time, like five years ago, it was something very interesting. And Virgil Abloh, head of Louis Vuitton creative now, he was reblogging at the time, and that kind of got us a little bit of presence online, and started to build a community online. Early on Instagram, talking to a lot of my friends. Not many people even knew what it was then. But we had people in Berlin, like young designers, rappers from America. And then, this pop-up, someone had mentioned pop-up concept, so we started to explore that. Met a peer here, and we did the first pop-up shop in South Molton Street. We brought this, it was a major milestone in EJDER's brand and our journey, was that moment in South Molton Street when we had people from like Germany, Paris, America, London, you name it, all over the place had come together. People who shared this interest online and begin to build this community online through Instagram, this new platform. It was a moment when they all actually got to come and meet each other. And that weekend was like, well, you had to be there. It was just emotional. We had like 5-hour queues out to the shop. The police come, locked off Bond Street Station. It was just mental.
It wasn't the usual South Molton Street crowd.
No, exactly. But that's what I love. That's EJDER in a nutshell. It's like, you say we can't do it, we're going to do it, Like, we're not supposed to be there doing that, but we was, and we did it, and we did a great job.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was just the pop-up shop. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Jeff, founder and editor-in-chief of Courier Magazine, media brand, bi-monthly print magazine focused on startup culture and modern business. I'm sure most of you guys will have seen it, heard about it, been in it potentially. Back in 2012, you quit your successful corporate job to...
Was it successful? I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know.
That's what the guys wrote. That's good.
Yeah. It's
who quits a successful corporate job? I don't know.
Printed on my card, so it's gospel.
It was successful.
So you quit your successful corporate job to launch a free magazine, which is, some might think a crazy step to take, but now, beautiful publication, obviously sold in over 25 countries around the world, and you're now championing startups through conferences, through events, and most recently through stores as well. Where did that start? How did that happen?
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird to be doing this, actually, because obviously my job is normally asking other people these questions. So I never think about it so much ourselves. But I guess this idea of an idea, and I think a lot of the time what we do at Courier is we try to question the narratives that are out there in the media. There's so much bad business coverage, like whether it's The Apprentice or Dragon's Den, all these silly things that don't necessarily map to real people's experiences. And I think one of those is this search for the idea that somehow great businesses are born by you sit somewhere and, probably in a coffee shop and come up with an amazing idea and then off you go. And I haven't found many businesses like that, and certainly my business wasn't like that. My business was started on a hunch, a little bit sort of actually when I was listening to what you were saying. So similarly, I had a hunch that maybe there are other people like me who wanted to kind of get out of their sort of corporate 9 to 5 and do stuff. And a lot of my friends were asking weird questions at the time. Like we'd go and buy a coffee and people who knew nothing about necessarily economics or accountancy would be going, what do you think the margin on a flat white is? And, how do they pay the rent in this place and whatnot? And so I just sort of, I had a thought that, somewhere in this there was a place for business coverage for people who would ordinarily never read a business magazine. And over time, that's evolved, and we're sort of 26 issues in now. Our core proposition's moved off from business, and now it's really a brand for people who want to live and work on their own terms. So startup is still a big part of what we do. That's the work on your own terms, but also that other side, which covers everything from mental health and fitness to how you might organise your living environment, travel, etc., around how you live on your own terms as well. So you actually get to enjoy the freedom that going off and starting your own thing creates. So.
Perfect, awesome. Moving on to Rob, last but not least. Co-founder with his brother Paul of Gandys, a lifestyle brand launched back in 2012 with a pair of flip-flops and a mission to inspire people to do a bit more with their lives than just exist. And I'll let you tell your story yourself, obviously, but the thing that I was doing a quick Google before I got here and found a quote that said, when you first launched your website, it looked like it was made in a school IT class and you used to take product shots with an iPhone and you used a bathtub as your white backdrop because you didn't have anything else. And you've taken that kind of start to 5-6 years on. You've got over 40, 50 employees, 5-6 different stores, a string of pop-ups, and you've also helped to fund 2 orphanages. Tell us about how that started.
So for my brother and myself, the idea was a case of doing something that we'd be passionate about, and a bit like the guys getting bored in a corporate 9 to 5, and we kind of thought, what can we do that would kind of get us out of bed every morning? And that was where we said, can we do something that would be inspired by travel? And for us, our parents took us out of school when we were 13 and 11, and we went volunteering and traveling all around the world, and we did that for about 4 years. But then unfortunately we lost our parents in the tsunami. So we then worked away for years, but we said, what can we do where we'll kind of do something that will kind of use the values they taught us whilst traveling? And we said, let's build a children's home in memory of them for the 10-year anniversary. So we started first with flip-flops, and we were bold. We just jumped out there and we were knocking on everyone's doors, doing all sorts. We've gradually evolved into doing much, much more. And as we've evolved with that, we not only opened that first children's home in Sri Lanka for the 10-year anniversary, we've opened one since in Malawi, and this year we're actually building 2 now, one in Brazil and one in Nepal. So what started with an idea with everyone going, you two are 2 young guys, how do you even go about starting a brand? How do you even go about building a children's home? We didn't know any of it. But I think if you're passionate about something and you kind of just persist with it and put in the graft, you'll be surprised how far you'll get. And that's kind of what we did.
Amazing. What was that kind of? So you were saying, talking about an idea, coming up with it in a coffee shop. What was the first thing that you did that kind of solidified the fact that this was going to be something? Question for you, Rob. You stopped talking about it. You did something.
I think.
Like, was it starting with the website? Was it a brand name? What was the, if you can remember?
The brand name came from a hangover. It was a case of waking up with a mouth like Gandys flip-flops, and we just said, there's the name, and that was it. So, and then it was a case of going out there, and what was kind of funny, my brother actually had a car accident, and he was then off work for 2 weeks, but typically off work, but he actually took out some samples of the flip-flops and went into a store actually not far from where you guys had your store, as a Spitalfield. So we went down there, and the guy in the shop said he loved it, and he got an order. So then the next day we both quit our jobs, and that was it. We just started.
Oh my God. Jeff, how about you? Was there like a first step that you actually took?
Yeah, we put our first issue's, I think, 20 pages, and we just sort of cobbled it together, the two of us. Got a little bit of work to finance it. We were lucky we sort of had a bit of creative work coming in, and just got it out on the streets. And I think we printed 4,000 copies, and we took it to Shoreditch House, we took it to All Press, just a few places we thought likely suspects would be. And they all went, and we got so excited. It's like, oh my God. Actually, we thought they'd just been thrown out. We couldn't imagine that. And then we found a big issue seller who ditched the big issue and was selling Courier out in Red Church Street for a free publication. He was making £3 a copy on it. And we thought, oh, we might just have something here. And, we made a lot of mistakes in the first one, but I think a bit like sort of what you're saying, we just got out and did something. And actually, in retrospect, I think, wow, I don't know actually how we sort of just went off and did it. Now I think we'd probably get caught up in planning and strategizing and all that stuff, but we just got on with it, made a load of mistakes, and I guess I'm lucky in my product, I get to sort of revise every mistakes, just wash away, and we get another chance sort of 8 weeks later. So we just kept evolving it, and now it's 180 pages and, yeah, all around the world and paid for.
It's amazing. Simon, you were saying before that your whole mantra is just do it. It's like the night thing. Yeah. But I guess for people sitting here now, how do you do that? Because it's so much easier to just stay in your corporate job and not do this crazy idea that you've got.
By just doing it. I mean, honestly, it's just believing, and having that vision and sticking to it. I mean, started having that community online and the following through a blog. Then the next step was I thought I had an idea, and I was like, I think I can sell these brands and people that I'm around. I think I can take their products and sell them for them. I didn't have a penny to rub together, but I said to them, if you let me just come and I can get pictures of it and just give me 10%. And literally, that's how it started. But launching the website was I remember that moment, the night before, and it was all building up to it, and I was super nervous because it's the time when it actually becomes something. It was I'm announcing, I'm telling all these people, I'm letting them in. It's I'm letting them into me. I felt a bit vulnerable, but excited. That was the moment, really. And then the pop-up shop was another one. And then taking the first permanent store on was a massive moment as well.
Gonna keep doing it?
Hell yeah. Yeah, hell yeah.
Puffy, I guess for you, you've got two different stories. So one with a co-founder and one with just you. How important was it? And I guess, how important was it to have a co-founder for you when you did the first one? And do you think it was more difficult than taking that leap on your own?
My biggest regret is not having a co-founder of Happy Not Perfect. I implore anyone, if they're going to set up a business, have someone to do it with. It is so brutal. I'm not going to cookie cut it. It has been some of the worst few years of my life. Some of the best too, right? It is some of the best.
It's constant. It's either ecstasy or agony, but there's nothing in between. And 1 o'clock can be agony, right. and 2 o'clock can be ecstasy.
Right,
yeah.
Honestly, the whole family's on a therapy chat group. It's the irony of creating a mindfulness app. I'm on him.
No, I thought you were going to be chilled.
I'm the power user. So having a co-founder is just incredible, because the problem is you're in your microcosm. No one else really understands what you're going through, aside from the people that are really in it. And really small things can be really, can be a really big deal. And trying to explain that to a friend is just, it's do you know what I mean? It's this kind of they don't quite sometimes. And also they're bored, and my friends are really bored by me by this point, because it's just endless. They're like, when will you be fun again? Sorry, I'm just being real right now. I'm really in the middle of it. And so having a co-founder is just so nice, because I get to, see Suki for a catch-up, and we have another co-founder, Leo. And we get to have a bit of a gossip, and then we get to talk about work, and it's just that balance is so important, to have someone that you can really giggle with, and also then really celebrate the highs and really be with each other in the lows. Whereas Happy Not Perfect has been, you kind of have these, I think, kind of honorary co-founders that are just people essentially that will just put up with you talking to them. So my advice is find someone who's just as passionate as you, and also find someone who is good good at things that you're not. Like, you know, I'm not great at numbers, and learned that the hard way. And so if I found someone who was really good at numbers, we would have been a really great team. So yeah.
And Rob, I guess your co-founder is your brother as well. Like,
My
how does
brother.
that work?
I'll trade him. You can have him. Yeah, it's interesting. To be fair, though, I think the good thing is, you can trust him. And I think that's a really important part and again, the whole kind of having somebody that's passionate about what you're doing. And my brother from day one kind of was completely on board with the drive to get these homes built. And if he has to work day or night, things like that, he's prepared to put in the sacrifices, which there's a lot of pain and sacrifices. But equally, we've had some amazing experiences whilst doing the brand, from seeing the children's home, the first one built, to last year we got asked by McLaren to be on the front of their Formula One cars. So they said, "Do you want to come out?" And they've helped us raise money as well. So
You have like the drivers wearing flip-flops. What's the...
what was really funny was everyone was walking past and we were like, we just thought we were going to like the race and that would be it. But what ended up happening is we went actually into the garage. So we were on the team radio with like Alonso driving, and we were stood there in our flip-flops, and everyone was like, how the hell are those two in the garage on the team radio with like wearing flip-flops? So that was kind of like one of the things where you get a high from all the spreadsheets and all the horrible stuff that has to be done that no one else sees you doing. So it's kind of, it comes with its ups and downs.
That's super interesting though. I guess you guys have such a purpose behind it, and you all do in very different ways that make it probably a lot easier to carry on pushing towards that goal. There's a stat that on this card that 75% of millennials think it's important a company gives back to society instead of just making a profit. Is that something that's fundamental to your business and you'd never do anything else?
I don't. I think the younger generation, that is really important, but also I think even the older people. In our stores, we get a whole mix of people coming in and online, and I think there's just a drive for more people to think in that manner. So I think it's just a shift in everyone's mentality, and again, even with kind of mental health and things like that. With your app, etc., the whole, the Mind charity, these things, I think there's a shift with things like that now. So I think it's just a general direction.
Simon, I really hope I'm not making this up because I've not got this written down anywhere, but I'm sure you've done something with like youth culture or youth employment or something like that I'm not explaining very well because I can't. It's a really vague memory. But
we've done a few. I mean, it's really what drives EJDER. It's the values that kind of EJDER sits on. As I said earlier, I'm a youth worker by trade. I did that for 10 years. So everything we do, it's all about driving communities and culture forward and like aiding in the development of young people. So we just did an event called Open Forum. It was a concept we had where it's about young people.
That's the one.
Is that it? Yeah, we're on the same page. So it's about young people, empowering each other. So it's not about like EJDER empowering them. It's about providing platforms and opportunities in order for them. If you give them an opportunity, you'd be surprised what they can do. So we reached out to 3 young people who we had relationships and worked with over the last few years. One was doing fashion, furniture, another one doing 3D animation. So we curated this workshop space and give the power to them. So they come up with the concepts for these workshops, and then our community come and signed up to these workshops over a weekend. So it's peer education essentially, and it was workshops by young people for young people essentially.
And again, that's like fundamental to your brand. That's going to be
that's what it's all about. I think I was talking to you earlier saying, where we're at now, and a lot of people, I can understand why they might think EJDER is like, this cool fashion brand, streetwear, and it is all of the above. Like that was my hobby. That's how I got into it. That's my interest. But my real purpose, is about impacting the world in a positive way and the communities around us. Like that's what I'm super passionate about. Breaking down stereotypes, connecting different people from different walks of life together that wouldn't usually. Society doesn't ever place them together. Why can't they talk to each other and create something unique?
That word community is huge, and it's become such a buzzword, and in a good way for you guys for sure, but it's a buzzword for a lot of brands. And Jeff, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this from either the brands you work with or the community you're building. is that important? Are people doing it in the right way and other people doing it in the wrong way?
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot of these words like startup, community, whatever. Like startup, what's startup? It's a small business. We just sort of rebranded it at some point and said, okay, now it's startup and it looks like this. And I feel like community in some ways is a bit like that. Like if I think about, your grandparents' local butcher, he had a community. There were customers who came into his store. They told him what they thought about his product. They went home and said, I just got a very lovely cut of beef from Joe Flanagan, the butcher. You should go there. It's a customer base who wants to talk about you and who's interested in what you do and finds what you do either essential or entertaining or useful or whatever the term that applies to your business. So a community I think is a great example of, or great feedback that you're doing something right. People care about what you're doing and want to talk about it. I don't think there's anything wrong with then encouraging that community and putting tools and things in place. But I think I see a lot of businesses that are almost community first. Like we can have a pretty average product, but if we spend all of our time on social media strategies and building communities and things like that, and I end up seeing a very successful community that's losing money. And so I think it's very much, I always feel like it's the product first, second, and third. And if you get that right, a good example is Apple don't do any community building. But they're the biggest company in the world and people pay a very high premium for their products. They've got a huge community, but they don't need to do it themselves.
Cool. And Poppy, do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting comment about Apple. I never thought about it like that. So Pop&Suki grew a community really quickly because it was this brand just based on the most important relationship in your life, your best friend. So I think because it started from such an authentic place, I just think authenticity is really important when you're building people that are like a brand, because what they are saying is they say, yes, I like your values, and Suki and I were super clear with what they were, and also we based a brand very much on using pastel pink as a marketing tool, and it just happened to be that year that pastel pink exploded, and everybody wanted everything in pastel pink, so that really worked out for us. And then Happy Not Perfect, we launched it in May, June, and it has been watching that has been the most incredible group of people come together. And I find that Instagram is a brilliant tool to grow, like-minded people and finding things that you're interested in and shared values. And finally, in the conversation of mental health, the reason why it's so important, what Happy Not Perfect, the app is doing, the community it's building, is that finally we're talking so honestly about emotions, the fact that we're human beings, the fact that we have challenges, the fact that we're all going to go through loss and but also like joy and we used to hide that for so many years. So it's a really new community where people are finally talking for the first time about things that in a way human beings haven't spoken about before.
Incredible. I'm going to join it.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll follow.
Yeah, you should have at least 50 app downloads or something from this.
Really hoping.
Looking at these, a lot of these are personal barriers, but looking at barriers that people are throwing out there in the landscape. So, Rob, the amount of things at the moment that are saying the high street's dead, and you're opening stores. Why are you doing that?
So for us, I think there's still a lot of brands that, yes, there's a lot that are in trouble, but then equally there's a lot that are still doing well, that are kind of shining through it. And I think when we talk about some of these stores, some of them haven't shifted with the times, and we're talking about some of the retailers that have been going for 50 years and they haven't modernized, and it's kind of, and again, they haven't looked at their online or things like that. They haven't found the balance, and it's kind of, there is a opportunity to get both right. And what we find is, even for example, our Covent store, I had a catch up with our store manager there literally a couple of days ago, and she turned around and said to me, she said, every day I'm now getting a customer coming in from Instagram or Facebook every single day purchasing something because they've seen it online, but it's a new brand to them, so they want to come into a store and try it out. So I still think there's huge value in it. It is a case of getting the balance between the two, but I don't think you can write off the high street whatsoever. And for us, we've got people that come all over the place that love our brand, that have been following us for years online, but they actually want to be part of the kind of experience and kind of come in and
make that physical connection, right?
Exactly. And we've had people come where they've gone, they're starting a business and they've come from, all over the place. We had one, not long ago, we had someone come from Harvard. They saw someone else wearing a backpack at Harvard and they were like, what's this brand about? Googled it, learned about it, went, wow, what a brand. On their trip to London, they made a point of coming in going, I saw someone wearing it there and I thought I'm going to kind of experience this, and not just a case of I bought it online and had it sent to me. They wanted to come in and actually hear about the projects, what we're doing with our kids' campuses, and you can't get that all kind of just from liking something. There's got to be a case of speaking to our team members, and even our team members have spent years traveling. Our store manager kind of in Covent has been all around the world, did a couple of years in Australia, and now she's running our store. So we get people coming in going, I'm going traveling, I need some stuff. They come in, but they speak to her about where they're going. So that kind of connection, and again, going back to what you mentioned about the old community, I think you can't lose that. This whole kind of buzzword of community has been created via social media, etc. But it did exist in those old days. So I think you kind of don't want to lose that kind of personal touch.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, from even our perspective, and Jeff, I hope and assume you see this as well, but we've got 200,000 brands now in our community. So there's a stat that just over 3,000 stores closed last year, which is terrible. Of course it's terrible, but we launched just over 4,000. So they're not for the same amount of time, but there's definitely like a new wave of brands coming through. Is that something you'd agree with?
Ross, your founder, has the ultimate position on this. There's one of those responses to a question I wish I could have done. He was on the BBC.
What did he say?
Just before, not long before Christmas. The reporter does the usual, death of the high street, everything's shutting down. We're here now with blah, blah, blah. And Ross just turns around and goes, the problem isn't the death of the high street. The problem is most stores are shit and people don't want to shop in them. Yeah. And it's just a classic, let's cut through all the nonsense and go. If I walk into, I'm very sorry for Debenhams or House of Fraser or John Lewis, but if I walk in there, it doesn't look any different to what it looked like 30 years ago. The buyers don't understand modern. I challenge anyone in this room could take a floor in there and I think probably do a better job of retailing for a relevant new modern audience to what's going on in there, because the business of retail for those people isn't about exciting customers. It's not about putting new things in front of them and innovation. It's about squeezing the most that you can out of your suppliers. It's about dictating. It's about jostling for space and charging. And it's not the business of retail. And most of them are in the business of renting floor space, not actually retailing anymore.
Yeah, there's another quote from our CEO, so please let's not let him listen to this because his head will
I know,
explode.
he's got to be good enough.
Yeah, but he always has this kind of analogy that department stores used to be run by showmen and now they're run by accountants. So there's, I think, if it was Selfridges, or maybe Liberty, when one store launched, the first guy that flew over the Atlantic, the plane was then exhibited in the department store.
Selfridges,
people went to go and see it.
And if you saw that show a few
years
years ago, Mr. Selfridge, it was like, literally, he's like a showman. And I think Selfridges still understand it, actually. I think there's a handful of department stores around the world who still understand retail theatre. And I'd argue Selfridges is one of them. And, you're not going to hear anytime soon, Selfridges is about to close. Interesting, though, on the point of physical retail, we just did a cover story with Jen Rubio, the founder of Away Suitcases. If any of you are familiar with them, they have a store here in London, big kind of success. If you talk to Jen, one of the reasons she's opening physical stores is the cost of customer acquisition on Instagram is now so high that actually physical rental has become, which is a complete irony that we started using those platforms like Facebook and Instagram because they were so cheap and we couldn't afford stores. Yeah. But now actually, prices have recalibrated, and what they're finding is for every store they open, they actually increase their online sales within about 25 miles by about 20%, and that gels exactly with what you're saying because it's an embassy. Yeah. People come in, they meet it, they get to know it, they get a lot closer to the brand than they ever can on a digital channel, which isn't to down digital channels. It's not either or.
Something you agree with, yeah?
Well, yeah, no, completely. And I know that, we've had that example plenty of times where, you get someone and we've got a customer online and they've spent £500 or something like that. And we're like, oh, okay, that's a good customer. How did we get them? Whatever. And then you find out it's a case of they came into one of our pop-up stores. They would have never spent £500, for example, online as a first-time buyer. They would have spent £30 or £40 or something. But because they've came in, they've heard about the brand, we've now got someone that will happily just spend money with the brand. So I think it's a key thing, and that's why kind of moving around with a few pop-ups here and there to introduce people to the brand is so much better than just having an Instagram app like pop up.
For sure. And Simon, that point on theatre, I mean, I've never beat Kanye West at anything, but you beat him to get named the world's coolest concept store. How did you do that?
From turning a toilet from the Victorian era into a cool store. Like, but it's not just about that. It's like, you know, we fitted it out and whatnot, but it's about how you bring that store to life. So we're just constantly active in there, just doing events on events, different like projects. It's about how to bring that product to life. So really our concept wasn't about just selling clothes. It's about exploring the culture that surrounds that clothing, that brand, that person, that designer. Yeah.
I guess, Poppy, for you, you've got an app. If you were to do a store and you did a launch party, what do you do in there? How do you bring it to life? How is that relevant for you?
Well, funnily enough, we used Appear Here.
I'll give you £10 later.
We did. I have to say, it was the most amazing experience. So we, to your point of the expense of user acquisition, I think experiential marketing is just the way forward for everyone. And I've always been really interested about bringing mindfulness alive, because I just think when someone talks about mindfulness, people immediately go meditation. They go, yeah, it's not for me. Whereas actually, like, looking after the mind is just the most brilliant thing that we could all be doing. So in London, I got the London Philharmonic Orchestra to give a sound bath and had everyone lie down with eye masks so they could...
It's a very casual thing to do, isn't it?
Right,
God.
just small, just drop that in, small orchestra. And then, but in New York, obviously, it wasn't as easy to do that because, I tried to call the New York Philharmonic. They were like, absolutely never going to happen. Or if you want to pay $100,000, we're a startup. So anyway, we went to Appear Here, and we brought the app to life in real life. If that made sense. So we have 7 steps in the app, which is your daily ritual for the mind. And then we did these interactive breathing exercises. And then you had a huge gratitude wall. So we took over one big white wall, and everyone from New York could just walk in and write what they were grateful for. And then they could write their worries in balloons and then release their worries. And by the end of the 2 days, the entire ceiling of this beautiful building was just filled with worries and balloons up above that had been released. And then we had these, people could send notes of appreciation to people. And we got the Harlem Youth Orchestra to come and give like a mini sound bath. But what was so excellent about Appear Here was, major plug, but it was literally a room like this. And they just said, do whatever you want. And it was a half an hour experience for people. And we still get emails saying, what I learned about my brain in that half an hour has changed my life, or that I've never experienced live music where I could lie down or wear an eye mask. So a little bit of creativity doesn't often cost a huge amount, but can leave a big impact.
You must, when people are doing that and they're releasing all of their kind of fears with the balloons, what have you learned about what stops people from taking that idea and actually physically setting up the website, taking the iPhone shots, actually doing something? What are the blockers and what are the reasons behind people not doing something?
I think human beings only have 2 emotions, which are fear and love. So you make a decision from one of those, and I think fear is the greatest blocker to everyone. The fear of failure, fear of what people will think, fear of, X, Y, Z. And so if you can face your fear, then you're able to do anything.
Okay. I've got some quick fire questions. And I mean quick fire, one sentence each, no more. And then we're going to go to the audience for questions, so please start thinking about things, because I might just randomly pick on you. First question, Rob, start with you. Sorry. You're at the end of a row. What is the idea you wish you'd thought of?
Question.
Don't overthink it. First thing that comes into your head.
Maybe a beer company or a cider company like Sassy. That would have been a good one. Yeah.
Jeff?
Oxygen. I like making money.
You're rich man.
Got to be essential. Got to be essential.
Simon? What is the one idea you wish you'd thought of? Not your own idea. See, if you'd have listened the first time around, you could have been thinking.
Guys. out there already?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Apple.
Yeah, Apple. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know, maybe a dating app, and you could bring lots of people together. Do you know what I mean? To be responsible for everyone hooking up. Brilliant.
No, I do now know one of the first Tinder divorces, so maybe not. But okay, next question. We'll go this way first as well. Puppies, you're going next. So, what is the one thing you wish you'd been told when starting your business?
Don't do it. Jokes.
A ringing endorsement, ladies and gentlemen.
Positive, Poppy.
Thank you, Poppy.
No. What's the one thing I'd been told?
Have a co-founder, maybe for you.
Yeah, I have a, yeah. Go for that one. Have a go.
Don't listen to any, do what you want to do. Don't listen to others.
For sure. Jeff?
Yeah, I like that one. I'll probably take that one. But also, maybe as well, you're capable of more than probably you think you are. Like, it's very easy in the early days to just worry about everything. Oh my God, we're 2 weeks away, and what if? Do you know what? You'll probably make it through. Like, you'll probably figure it out. You're probably good at it. If you don't give in to kind of the fear of it all, you'll probably be just fine.
What?
I think kind of a little bit like what the guy said. I'm sorry to be a cop-out, but don't listen to people. And again, I think only you ever know that things aren't to where you want it to be. So having that paranoia of it's not good enough, we can't, actually it's a case of no one knows any different. So just improvise and go with the flow.
2 more quick-fire questions. So get thinking, please. What industry is most in need of some new ideas? Obviously, we thought the property industry was probably in need of that. There's, I'm sure, a lot of other ones. Jeff first, going with you.
Supermarkets. If you walk into a supermarket and you turn around, supermarket hasn't changed in effectively 50 years, and it's in the business of selling you food, not actually meeting your nutritional needs, your health needs, a whole lot of other things. There's so much opportunity in supermarkets.
Simon?
Travel.
Why?
Just because.
Just because. Okay, awesome. Poppy? Me. I didn't realise these were so hard.
Find an industry that brings you
Yeah. It's probably, that, when you say it like that, it does sound like quite a hard question.
Yeah, maybe trains.
Sounds like a conference.
Yeah,
Trains
yeah,
or the tube. Trains or the tube, they maybe have charger
Yeah, the
ports.
tube's terrible.
Imagine if they had chargers in the tube.
Amazing. Bob?
I think, mobile phones, the batteries just don't last long enough these days. It's drain them.
Definitely agree with that. Final question from me, and this is getting you to, you're going to find this one hard as well, because I would find this one hard. So complete the sentence. Yeah. A great idea is what? Go in the order that you want to go. Different.
Yeah, something different.
Different.
A gut instinct.
An instinct.
That's something you can just get on with.
Okay. Bob?
It's something you're passionate about.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Questions from the audience? Anyone thought of anything? Anyone ready? Come on, guys. That's perfect. Go.
I think so. Everybody talks about startups, and the environment is obviously a huge issue to everybody. What do you guys feel that the job of startups is with regard to how they tackle their packaging, the way they display their products, what they use, who makes them, where they come from? I see there's so many people who post out there that I made this, honest or clever, that's amazing, and you're like, oh great, you made it. And they're like, oh, I made it. I mean, it came from China or India, from a sweatshop where kids are suffering, and then it got thrown across the world at expense of air pollution, and nobody just really thinks about the damage that we're causing. So, do you think that startups are best placed to start tackling that sort of stuff, or is it independent people? How do you kind of get more drive behind that and passion behind it?
Jeff, do you want to take that? You're nodding.
I was just doing that to be socially appropriate. I was empathizing. I learned it on the app. This might sound a bit brutal. I don't mean it that way, but your job as a startup, first and foremost, is to make money to keep yourself alive. You'll make money by meeting the needs of your customer. And here's where we unfortunately have a disconnect still. If you go and ask the public, do you care about buying ethically, child labour, etc., 99% of people will say yes. And yet, if we go around this room, the number of people wearing Uniqlo, H&M, Zara, Primark, etc., the number of people who, when no one's looking, wear a T-shirt once and then throw it out or whatever, suggests that the things we say as consumers and how we actually act aren't necessarily the same. So my feeling is things don't really change until governments regulate, and that you guys, like 1-2-man bands, you can be the closest to change when change is out there and demand is shifting, but you can't change the world as a 2-man person trying to you can certainly inspire people along the way, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but you have to stay in business first.
We've got an example of that. We made some jumpers that were handmade in the Himalayas, and again, the price point, we paid 3 times what we'd pay in another factory for a jumper, but the fact is a customer still won't pay that extra amount. So then we've still got our rent and rates and staff and everyone to pay, but if a consumer doesn't want to pay more, they don't want to pay more. So how do you go about that? So I think what you said is spot on. Equally, I would also say I've been to warehouses. We do all our own warehousing now, but we used to do warehousing all over the place and stuff manufactured here. And I've been into warehouses here that are worse than what I've seen in India or China. So it depends if people have actually gone in there, gone out there, because I've equally gone to China and India, not just from traveling, but in terms of production. And I've actually gone, wow, some of these setups, don't get me wrong, there's places where it's shocking, but that's no different to working environments here if you look at Amazon with their warehouses or things like that. So I think kind of it's a quite a big issue. It's kind of.
Cool. Any other question? Yep, go on.
So you're all obviously very successful entrepreneurs. I would love to know
I'm not.
Not yet. In your phase, going from the embryonic launch stage to getting that traction, like you hear all these stories of people losing their house, people losing their family, they're getting divorced, Chapter 11. What's your view on taking outside investment, and how does that change the dynamic of the business, and emotionally, how does that feel for each of you guys?
Depends who the investor is.
Have any of you taken investment?
Yeah, I've taken investment for both companies, and I would say that, totally to your point, depends who the investor is. I have, one investor in particular who is just an absolute guardian angel, invested in both companies, my biggest cheerleader. I can call him after an 11-hour day, and he just is like, keep going, I believe in you. And he's like, they're your coach. And I've also got other investors who have just continued told me I'm doing the worst job ever and I should probably leave. It has just been so on the one hand, investment's incredible, and on the other hand, it has been so demoralizing that it's probably slowed down my progress. But what I would say, if you can make your business profitable before you need investment, and that's obviously the best thing, if you can hold off for as long as possible, it's so pure, it's your idea, all your energy, and I think the authenticity levels are just 100%. And then, when you have investors, you're working for the investors. You're working to make sure that you're bringing back their money in return. So I would say just hold out for as long as possible, and then find the good ones that you really get on with when you do.
Anyone else? We've got a few more questions, I know, so if anyone else wants to jump in, no?
Just see how long you can go before you need it. Go as long as you can.
Well, I'm looking for investment, so if there's any investors out there, just give me a shout.
Excellent.
It's the same as employing someone, though. When you're building a team, you don't know till someone actually works. You interview, and everyone knows what to say in an interview, how to get a job. Once you've been working a while, you've done a few interviews, they know what to say. And it's the same with investors. They know what you want to hear. But then once you go down the road, you're like, oh, actually, I didn't anticipate that. So I think that's a similar situation.
Sorry, Becky, do you agree? Is it like an essential part of the journey?
If you don't have to raise investment, why would you?
why do you want
it seems
to?
like most people do. People do.
I
you
almost feel
guys
like
have.
that is the mistake. I feel like almost there's been this explosion of startups and and if you raise investment too quickly, then you get to stumbling blocks on the third year or fourth year. I just think if you can prove you've got a solid business and a profitable business, anyone's going to invest in you. And you want to be in the situation where you have 5 meetings and 5 people are pitching, and you got the valuation higher and higher and higher because they're like, I just want to be involved. Otherwise, like, you know, anyone that thinks they've got it almost like, I don't know. It's a really tricky one because obviously investment makes you grow a lot quicker, and in this environment we live in such a fast-paced world that you've got to go really quickly. But if you've got a unique product,
Also, having no money is a great fuel for creativity. There's nothing better than being desperate and poor for coming up. And I say that as someone like, even if we'd wanted investment, in 2013, we're starting a print magazine. We've had this fantastic idea. Whilst the rest of the industry's dying, we're going to print. So no one would have given us money, you know, if we'd tried. And so we ended up doing things completely counter to what our publishing media investors would have told us to do. And as a consequence, I think we've engineered a much lower cost base. We've come up with much better solutions to things. I'm really glad we didn't get investment, actually. I probably wouldn't have as much grey hair, but... we have tiny amount, with 4% investment, but I think back to Poppy's point, we now actually have people knocking on our door going, hey, we'd really like to talk to you about investing, and we get to sit there going, well, we don't need it, but we're happy to have a conversation when the time's right. We probably will now pour a bit of petrol on the fire, and you know.
We've got time for one more question. I think there was someone over there that's gone incredibly shy. There you are. Yes.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice. So you talked a lot about community as a startup, and you're mainly talking about your customers, and building community and customers. I was just wondering if you think it's important to also have a community among other startups, or if you think it dilutes your brand in a way.
Sorry, what was the question?
So it's more a question on the benefit of collaborating with other startups. Do you think
Would
it's
it-
a good idea, or?
Would it dilute your brand, or is it something that's going to strengthen it because you're banding together?
As in, like,
I always say collaborate to elevate, in terms of work with someone bigger that you're going to learn from, that you kind of want to understand how they work, and also by working with someone much bigger, you can then also get out to their reach, because when you have small kind of budgets, you're going, how do we get out to people? So in our early days, we've collaborated with the likes of Liberty, with the Rolling Stones, we've done all kinds of different things, but we know they've got a huge audience, so straight away we're now, we're amongst their fan base. So we haven't done too much of kind of collaborating with other smaller companies. It's been a case of we want to learn off the biggest and the best to kind of help us grow. So that was our approach to it.
I think there can be strength in numbers sometimes. Like a lot of smaller media businesses, we all get together, we talk, we share things like how much are you paying for paper, what's this printer like, could we club together and bulk buy to be able to match the majors. I think often people think competition is about everyone in the circle, but the reality is there's very few other competitors your size that are going to knock you out of the market. The competitor is the big old established brand that you're trying to take share from. So anything you can do to club together, I've generally observed, and certainly in our own industry, has been more useful than not.
Poppy,
Yeah,
do you
like
wanna-
Coca-Cola makes Pepsi bigger, right? That whole thing. Like competition actually makes the industry bigger. But I do understand your point, though, in terms of does it dilute your brand? Because I think sometimes you can rush to collaborate, and to your point, maybe also like two small brands, you then slightly lose your identity, or you're wanting to increase your community, and you kind of maybe sacrifice a little bit of your integrity. So I can definitely, there's even been scenarios of Happy Not Perfect, people have asked to collaborate, and it's just like, we're just a bit too young, like no one knows us yet before we give our brand to somebody else. But on the positive collaborations, we actually, Pop&Suki very early on collaborated with Away, and that was like one of the best collaborations we could do. We made a pastel pink suitcase, and it did insanely well, and we were both quite young at the time. Both the brands were quite young, and it elevated both of us. But that made sense, that partnership. But I think it's really, really thinking about partnerships for a long time, rather than just jumping on them because you're like, we can get 10,000 more extra Instagram followers.
Awesome. I think we're just about out of time, but thank you so much for coming, guys. Thank you to all of you, to the panel as well. very, very quickly, sorry, I wrapped that up way too soon. Proceeds from these events always go to a relevant charity. This one's going to the Entrepreneurial Refugee Network. Thank you also to Maison Sassy for this delicious cider that we're all drinking. And guys, if you're sitting here feeling a bit inspired and thinking, I can do it, we've given you no excuses with Space for Ideas, so please remember to apply for that. You've got until the 18th of February. Thank you very much.